everyone. I'm Ara Bowman, founder of AB+Production, and today I have the pleasure to have in our studio Mr. Josh Woeckner.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Wednesday Highlights. So, as you probably don't know or know, I reached out to you, but audience don't know. But I did reach out to you for a reason. I got so impressed with what I saw you online doing, and I wanted to showcase you to the world.
Oh, well, thanks. I try.
So, Josh.
Yes.
First of all, tell us, what exactly it is that you do?
I am a wedding and private event DJ. I own Highlight Weddings and Events, which is a private event and wedding mobile DJ company.
How long have you doing this?
I've been doing I have been a wedding DJ for almost 6 years now.
Wow. So were you from here originally, or?
Yeah, I was born in California, and then my dad PCS'd here when I was 5, and I grew up in the area.
Okay. So you decided to start this new venture, entrepreneurial journey of DJing.
Yes.
But not just that.
No, I also started a podcast, and it was kind of funny because I started the podcast before the coronavirus happened, and then since the coronavirus happened and there weren't as many weddings or private events, then I was like, well, I might as well just keep doing it. So I think I'm on my 12th episode that I just released yesterday.
But what made you start this podcast?
I actually started the podcast because I saw it as an easy way to create blog content.
Blog content, it's amazing. But before we go in that, you are obviously main DJing to weddings and other, is it just weddings or?
Weddings and private events. My main focus is weddings right now, but I also do private events.
Private
as well.
events, okay. What kind of planning and preparation goes into an event?
There is a ton, actually. One, I want to make sure that the couple is going to be a good fit for me, because yes, it would be great if I could say, oh, I'm the best DJ ever and you're going to have a great time, but different people mesh well with different people. So I am humble enough to admit that I may not be the right DJ for a specific couple. And then after that, really it's just about encouraging the couple to incorporate songs that are unique to them and really tell the story of their wedding.
So you take the time and you consult with them, trying to really understand their preferences and kind of make your checklist.
Yeah, no, I definitely see each wedding specific to that couple. And now different weddings may have similar songs that I will incorporate. I don't want their wedding to essentially be just like a cookie cutter where I just like, okay, there's their wedding and there's their wedding, and then.
So you care.
Yeah.
To like
totally.
Fully extend. And in your podcast, you also talk about what kind of planning and preparation goes into it, right?
Yes.
That's awesome in value right there. What I wanted to also ask is, in what ways do you provide additional value to customer besides the DJing, the servicing, the consultation, the preparation? Obviously, through the podcast, right?
Right.
But what are you talking about in a podcast? Because that's what intrigued me.
Okay. Well, the podcast is called Make Your Wedding a Highlight. And so the goal is to share with couples how they can make their wedding a even better experience, working with different wedding vendors or wedding companies.
So if I'm a bride and I want to get ready for my wedding, I should subscribe and get your podcast, because you obviously been into the industry of DJing, seen a lot of weddings. Also, you collaborate with wedding coordinators?
I collaborate with wedding coordinators. Are you referring to the guests I have on the podcast, or?
Yeah, like in your podcast and also off the podcast. You collaborate with wedding coordinators.
Wedding coordinators, photographers, videographers.
So you have a base of vendors where these people, like a bride, if I'm in a need of that kind of service, you could also connect me with.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Like, how amazing is that? Like, easy. Just go to you and say, hey, give me the list.
Right.
Do you have any projects here coming soon?
What do you mean?
Like any new weddings? Like, how's the wedding with all this COVID? Like, what's the project with with the timing right now, the uncertainty? And
yeah, there's a hashtag on Instagram that says "Love is never canceled." And
I love that.
Yeah,
oh my God,
love is not canceled. I can't remember what it is exactly, but yes, COVID or the coronavirus has created new challenges for weddings, but people are still going to get married. It has kind of changed what a wedding looks like right now.
How so? Give me a quick, from what you've seen recently.
There's something called a micro wedding, which is where the guest count is much smaller. It is usually more trimmed down, but you can also incorporate live streaming. If, for instance, if your grandparents or a family member or friends either are susceptible to the virus or specific to this area, if they are under the DoD travel ban. Right now, military personnel, most of them can't come to Florida because it's a red state and because other things like that. So
they could do live stream with. Now, do you have somebody that helps the bride with that, or you help?
I do. I provide it myself.
So you provide yourself. So you can DJing. You can also do the live stream and have the family of the members of the bride to see through your live streaming services as well. How clever! That's amazing, right there.
Thank you.
About the podcast, I want to go back to it.
Okay.
Where can we find it?
You can find it literally on any major podcast distributor, from Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, Stitcher, etc.
Right. Let's just Google what? Highlight.
Make your wedding a highlight.
Make your wedding a highlight, yes. And I love the logo you picked. I love the branding, the side of it.
Thank you.
So you've been doing this podcast for how long now?
I think I've been doing it for, how long? Maybe 2.5 months?
2.5 months. How many episodes have you recorded? 12, you said.
I think so. I think
so
that's where I'm at.
So how do you get your guests? Let's see. How do you invite guests in your podcast that revolves around this in niche and industry such as weddings? And you seek advice how they can do better, or advice that will help the groom or the bride.
Yes.
Right? How did you come up with the concept of that?
Well, I really wanted an easy way to write blog content. That was the personal reason behind it. But I also, the reason why I named Highlight Weddings and Events that name is because the event is not about the DJ, or it's not about me. It's about the couple and their guests, or whatever the point of the event is. So my goal is to highlight that. And I've also adopted a similar philosophy for the podcast. So the interview is me asking questions about the other wedding professionals or wedding business owners.
Nice. Like how the concept of marketing. So you're an entrepreneur. You're kind of like still on your own dynamic of growing, and you know, you're doing great. You look like you have your things put together.
Thank you.
You're working really hard so far. And the podcast value, guys, if you haven't heard it, please go check it out, because there's a lot of value there. And also you always seek new podcast guests, right?
Absolutely.
So invite them. Go ahead and tell them, say, if you guys want to find us in our podcast.
If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email me at josh@highlightweddingsandevents.com. I totally want to make it about you. So I definitely take the time to incorporate things that you want to share about your business, or specific to what you do in weddings.
Could there be a bride too, though?
Maybe.
What if you're gonna start sharing some stories about, like, what is the best things to do before prep your wedding, like from a bride aspect, as far as perspective?
I don't know. Maybe that might be a different podcast on.
Good idea. I love that. That could be a new thing that you could probably like focus on, that niche.
Maybe.
So what I like about you and why we responded actually to you too, because you got our email and being our interview, and thank you for reaching back out to us, and we reached back to you.
Definitely.
What impressed me besides the podcast, your strategy in you believing in the marketing and how to market yourself. And you said you wanted to do podcasts because it helps you with the blogging. Elaborate just a little bit on that, because some people may not understand it, and I want the audience to learn where not that they just see your podcast, but where they can also read your format of blogging. Okay.
So what I do is I record the podcast, and then once that's completed, I'll go back through and transcribe it. I usually have an idea of what direction the blog is going to go, But I like the fact that I have the entire episode to kind of pull different tidbits and cool things from what we talked about. So I will then, once the recording happens, usually next week, I will release a blog about it. So for instance, I just did I featured Jillian McCarthy from the Henderson last week on the blog, and then the podcast will be released, I think, 3 or 4 weeks later. But just talking about something specific to that wedding professional. So then once I release the blog, I also do a post on Facebook and Instagram, just because it helps with visibility for people that are in my sphere of influence on social media, but it also does help cross promotion to allow Highlight Weddings and Events and myself personally be introduced to people that are in their sphere as well. So it's very
wonderful
very mutual.
strategy. So let me iterate to see if I got it right or wrong, because I want to make sure the audience and I get it right. So you create a form long content such as a podcast, and then you break it down through a transcript by forming a blog, which you posted on your website.
Right.
And then you also do probably a little bit of research of keywords into that.
Yeah, I make sure I use Yoast.
Use Yoast. Yoast is a good. Yoast is a good. Or SEM Rush. SEM Rush. SEM Rush.
Okay.
It's also a very good source of seeing some competitor keywords. So you apply that. So you use Yoast. You do the research in keywords, and then you take the podcast, transcribe it, emphasize on these keywords, and then you put that on your website, and that drives through Google by ranking higher. Therefore you get more traffic. Therefore you get more leads, and therefore that makes you a good business owner because you know what you're doing.
Right.
Now,
I try.
Well, how did you learn all this strategy? Because this is not easy, is it?
No, it's not easy. Really, it was just...
I mean, it can be easy once you get the hang of it, but it still takes you time.
Yeah. Primarily, it was because since I just started my company in January, I didn't have a lot of capital to be able to invest in advertising. So I've been looking for cost-effective ways on how to just reach more potential customers.
I'm so excited because I hope more people get to see your strategy and start doing themselves by creating a podcast, by doing a blog and getting out there and let the audience know about what you do, right? Well, I think that was pretty interesting learning from you today, and also what I've heard from your future podcast. Are you ever going to do a podcast like maybe entrepreneurs on the Emerald Coast and maybe invite me to someday?
Probably not, just because it's not...
That's why I have mine.
That's
see?
why you have
That's
yours. That's why you have
So,
yours.
thank you so much for providing so much value to us and information about what you do.
My pleasure.
And where the audience can find you exactly again.
Okay, you can go on the website. It's www.highlightweddingsandevents.com, all spelled out. You can also find us on Facebook, highlight_weddings_and_events, and it's going to be the same on Instagram. And
yeah, reach out if you have any questions to Josh Woeckner. Super cool entrepreneur right here, you guys, and with innovative mindset. Thank you so much for watching our Wednesday highlights. Feature your business. Stay tuned for your next episode, and let's see who we have in the studio. We're signing out from AB+Production.